Yeah. I mean, Biden, they used to call him Senator Credit Card because he was the senator from Delaware, and throughout his career did the bidding of MBNA, which is the largest independent credit card company in the country, which, by the way, also employed his son Hunter. Um, no, we know what Biden's record is. I mean, all this PR stuff and Uncle Joe and empathy, and we're just being completely gaslit. Look, the problem with the left is that every 4 years it proves it stands for nothing. Either you stand with it. We should have walked out on the Democratic Party with NAFTA, and we didn't, and that has shredded the credibility of the left because we surrender to the Democratic Party, which in Europe, the Democratic Party would be considered a far right party.
Mm.
And that's the problem. Nobody wants to step out. Nobody wants to confront the corporate duopoly. And let's be clear on all of the major issues. There's no difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. What they fight over are ethical or societal issues, which are not unimportant: GBLTQ rights and a woman's right to control her own body, and all of that stuff is important, but those aren't really political issues. On the major political issues, whether it's war, free trade, austerity, wholesale surveillance, there's no daylight between them. And now we have no time left, given the ecocide that is looming and the potential for billions of lives to not only be disrupted, but ultimately lost. And I think that if you look at the climate crisis, it's an example of how all of the ruling elites have failed us. Because there's an example over the past 3 decades of people protesting and lobbying and sending petitions and appealing to the UN and funding Greenpeace, and this misguided trust in liberal politicians like Obama or Biden. And what's happened? There's been, over that time period, a 60% rise in global carbon emissions since 1990. And now we have baked into the system, according to most estimates, another 40% rise in the next decade. So that means we're less than a decade away from carbon levels that are estimated to be 450 parts per million. That's equivalent to a 2 degrees Celsius temperature.
Mm-hmm.
That's a catastrophe. And I think that figure alone shows that the elites are not beholden to the common good, not beholden to the citizenry, but to this essentially global corporate behemoths that don't pay taxes and are not accountable. I just did an event the other night for Stephen Donziger, who won the $9.5 billion settlement against Chevron. Chevron packed up, left Ecuador. These were in the Amazon basin, and is now persecuting Donziger. Actually managed to get him placed under house arrest and disbarred. And but that's where real power lies. And if we don't confront and essentially wrest power back, we're finished, just in terms of the climate. Why was Biden selected? And he was selected because the corporate oligarchs who prefer Biden over Trump's an embarrassment to the empire and inept and impulsive and all the other things we know. And Biden will restore that kind of decorum. But all of the major Democratic donors, including Lloyd Blankfein, the former CEO of Goldman Sachs, and everyone else, made it clear that if Bernie Sanders was the nominee, they would vote for Trump. So this whole thing of the least worst mantra only applies to us, doesn't apply to them. They don't like Trump, but they can live with him.
Right.
Biden is their handpicked. They did rig it. And there are all sorts of other dirty tricks they use. They turned the DNC, which they did in 2016 as well, into an arm of, and it was the Clinton campaign, now it's the Biden campaign. They effectively blocked independents from voting in many primaries, and a lot of young Bernie supporters are not registered Democrats. So, they sabotaged Sanders' campaign in 2016, and they sabotaged it again in 2020. And let's be clear, without that massive amounts of corporate money, figures like Biden or Hillary Clinton or Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer wouldn't hold power. I mean, the power of a Schumer or a Biden or a Pelosi is that they funnel that money to the anointed candidates. They funnel that big money. and you take that big money out of politics, they wouldn't have a job, and they know it. So I mean, the system is not. The Democratic Party doesn't function as a normal political party. The base has no say in the party platform or the party, even the party hierarchy. I mean, you can't sit on the DNC unless you're a superdelegate. Superdelegates are appointed, and they're all lobbyists or ex-politicians or whatever. It's completely rigged. And I think part of the naivete of Sanders was that he thought he could work within that system. And unfortunately, as Samuel Johnson once said of remarriage after divorce is the triumph of hope over experience.